everybody. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I am Dr. Kristen.
And you are so very welcome to our tiny little corner of the internet, where today we are doing our Season 5 recap of Netflix's astronomical global sensation, The Crown. Little disclaimer, if you found us through the algorithms and you're not a regular subscriber, hello.
Hi.
You should know that we don't do like a blow-by-blow recap. We won't be here like, in episode 1, this is what happened. In episode 2, no. We do a thematic recap. So we're going to outline the major themes that were presented throughout all 10 episodes, talk about the little intricacies of them, talk about some character development for maybe the big 5 characters for this season that were on almost every episode. And then we always end with talking about what we would like to see or what we think we will see in season 6. So I think the characters and the themes will probably overlap because a lot of the themes are about specific characters. Let's start with the bookends to this season, which is the theme that the Queen is outdated, Victorian, to be put out to pasture, and that Charles is waiting in the wings, conspiring for what his monarchy will look like, which just throughout this whole season never failed to make me giggle because I am living in the world in 2023 and I know he is not even coronated yet. So bless, keep pushing your agenda. Charles, you got 2.5 more, you get almost 3 decades from when this season ends. But like that was such a theme for this episode, was like, the times are changing. Like they did it with John Major and like the shift to Tony Blair, like everything about the royal family is outdated. The televisions, like the scene where Lizzie gets cable television and she's like, even our televisions are outdated or don't function, like they're a metaphor for what's happening. The Annus Horribilis episode and the fire in Windsor Castle, like the Windsor family is not okay and there's a huge like fault line coming, and that's the big one. I think probably the biggest theme outside of like character development themes of this season.
Yeah. It's funny because I kind of think of the themes in like pithy commentary because the first theme for me is like the fucking yacht, and that is the like Lizzie is should be decommissioned, should not be decommissioned, like what you just said.
Yeah.
The other one is please someone won't someone get Diana a Xanax, and that Diana's mental health and the casualty that it caused when Martin Bashir manipulated that mental health and didn't act with any duty of care. Honestly, just let them get married. That's the story of Charles and Camilla. Just let them get married. Who cares? And please won't someone think of the children, the ramifications on William. So like in my mind, like those are kind of the 4 stories that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
They didn't need 10 episodes to tell those stories. To me, the meat, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 were maybe 9, maybe part of 9-ish. But
I mean, because they had to tell the story of the divorce. They just had to. So, like,
and I'm not upset about how they told it.
Yeah.
To me, I guess it's like what I thought 9 was incredibly well acted. Like, all of that is fine. 10 was a mess. 3 was unnecessary. 1 and 2 were good, but, like, I think they still dragged their feet a little bit. We started cooking with gas at 4. So 4 to 8 is, like, I'll hold that up against any other, like, arc in the 5 seasons and say, this is what The Crown was about.
Yeah, so good.
And that's where all 4 of those stories I thought were in balance.
Yeah.
Across those episodes, those 5 episodes.
Yeah.
In the other episodes, they were either out of balance or were so ham-fisted, like in episode 10, that none of them were treated well. Like they might have been time balanced, but they weren't narratively executed. Mm-hmm. So you covered the is Lizzie, has Lizzie's best days gone behind her? Pearl clutching. And I think it's really rough for us sitting here in 23 because I would absolutely argue that there should have been a term limit and she should have stepped down when she turned, let's say, 75, for the entire reason that as a figurehead of a nation, she either could choose to be like a grandmother and lean into that, which she didn't do. She wasn't like warm, and if she was so convinced that the monarchy has to be unemotional, an old white lady was not the right face of the monarchy.
Yeah.
If she wanted to do it, then she should have leaned into being Mummy. Like, we should have seen her more with the, like, if she had chosen to adapt, grand. Okay, this is Queen as grandmother. Because I think the nation, honestly, in the aughts, could have used a grandmother.
For sure.
I think they could have used just someone to be like, it's gonna be okay. But in that, like, very ASMR kind of, like, I will proverbially bake you cookies kind of way. Yeah. Not in the, I will stand off here and you will all mind yourselves kind of way that she did.
Yeah, and you really, really don't get that version of her until maybe the last five.
Meghan and Harry's wedding, maybe?
I would argue some of her public appearances, like when she went to Ireland and like shook hands with Martin McGuinness.
Yeah. That
was pretty forward thinking.
Showing up on the Oscars was pretty that year that Bond got. She did the sketch with
that was the Olympics.
The Olympics.
Yeah.
I thought it was the Oscars. So 2012. Yeah. Like,
yeah. So I think
2012 was a good year for her.
Probably her last decade she was that more version of herself. And certainly like her like Christmas address during COVID was one of the like everything's going to be okay. Yeah, it was very it was very peak grandmother energy. But there were still 20 years in between when that happened. And as you were talking, I was thinking about it like, the age that she was by the mid-90s, I think it makes sense that these types of discussions were happening. And, the decommissioning of the Britannia was a thing that happened. And it is very symbolic. Same, as we talked about in our episode 10, the transition from John Major to Tony Blair is a really big thing. Ushering in this new era. The times are changing. Like, I'm not saying it shouldn't have been a theme. I just don't know how, and I'm not sure I know how he could have done it differently, but it just felt weird the whole time because she's not going anywhere.
Well, I think one of the ways it could have been done differently is it was done not so frequently. So, like, we had to have 90 conversations about it instead of, like, if he had just treated 1 and 10 as the bookends with the Britannia, I think that would have been fine. But, like, we got a lot of this throughout the whole thing. Like, if he hadn't hammered it home with the TV.
Yeah.
If he hadn't, like, and I think it was just too much. And then it became Elizabeth's only story this season, which it's not. Her other major story is her marriage with Philip, but it gets completely overshadowed by goddamn yacht.
Yeah. And that storyline I think they did a really great job with in terms of like, and there's a difference I think between the maturation of Elizabeth and the like relevancy of Elizabeth. And I think
ooh, great point.
It overlapped too much.
Yeah.
And the maturation, the parts where, even if they talked about, like, the relevancy of the monarchy in terms of, like, maturity and what the 90s meant, I thought that was interesting. But I'm more interested in, like, the evolution of the monarchy, not discussions of a new monarch when we know there's not going to be a new monarch. To me, it was just, like, wasted air. Like,
yeah, and I think he was so insistent that he was the change that needed to be made.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Change needed to be made. It didn't have to come from him being the monarch.
And
so he came across as petulant a lot.
A lot.
And when he was a 45-year-old guy who should have known the writing on the wall.
Yeah, and like we talked about this as it came up in various episodes, but like the fact that Peter Morgan wants to sell me on a Prince Charles that ever thought his mother would abdicate, I just believe to be nonsense, because he lived in that family and that was his mother his whole life. And she was never going to abdicate. And so to me, like, there were moments like that where it took me out of it and I was like, okay, you're a petulant and child that is, and I understand this is a fictitious rendering of Charles, but it is based on a real person, and so I kind of lean in towards that sometimes. But like, to me, the funny thing was he just kept talking about how like we have to get all these old white men out of there, and I'm like, lol, you're an old white man and you're gonna be king now, like, because your mom was never gonna abdicate and she didn't die until last year. So yeah, it was just awkward to me. I don't want to say like it was a bad storyline. It brought up interesting points. But 2 episodes essentially about both the literal and symbolic decommissioning of the Britannica was 2 episodes too many. 1 episode too many. 1 episode, sorry. I meant 1 episode too many.
Like, she's sad, and I'm sorry she's sad, but it was really, and maybe that, I mean, one of the stories he wanted to tell is that they couldn't get out of their own way to actually care for the British people. But I wish then somebody would have said that.
Yeah.
Like, there was, I don't know what the show wants us to feel about Elizabeth.
It's a good point.
And I don't know if the show knows what to feel, and I need one of us to know how to feel.
Yeah, I think they were relying on us to do too much inferring.
Yeah, probably.
When I don't think they knew what they wanted us to infer, which is the point you just made. But I think other parts of Elizabeth were handled really well. Her relationship with Margaret, I think, is done pretty well. And I'm, even though they focused too much on Margaret in the first 2 seasons, I think they've hit that balance now. Where and the episode where she reconnected with what's his nuts, Peter Townsend, played by not Pierce Brosnan, what's his name, Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton. I thought that was a lovely, like, kind of rehashing and like what aging looks like and love and relationships. So I think they did a good job with balancing those relationships, but I really think the strongest part was they tackled Philip and Elizabeth's changing relationship, which is a core of the show. It always has been, examining what that looks like in each decade of their lives as monarchs and as humans that are married to each other. So all of that I thought was good. We got some interesting things out of Philip. Some infuriating things out of Philip. So I think that's on par with seasons 1 through 4. He has like equal parts interesting and infuriating. But then we shall go down to the next layer of Windsors. We talked a lot about Charles already in and of himself. As the heir to the throne, but obviously one of the biggest stories of this whole season was Charles and Diana, and the dissolution of their marriage, and the violence of their marriage. Yeah, and as you pointed out, I think so well in our episode 10 recap, like the second half of season 4, and a lot of Charles's character in season 4 was he's the baddie. He's the one like cheating on a child. And this season for Elizabeth, we got I was thinking of Elizabeth Debicki, who played Diana. This season for Diana, we got a tipping of the scales, where we see her so much more as a complicated and flawed human person, which we all are. And as we talked about in depth this season, a person who is deep, deep, deep in lifelong trauma, compounded, exacerbated, and made much, much worse by the trauma of her marriage. And Fair dues. Fair dues for, I think, being a bit more heavy hitting about it and a bit more realistic. She was certainly very naive at times and inexperienced with the world. We saw that with the 2 episodes around the Panorama interview. And we saw a lot of Diana lashing out in this season, in pain and in anger and in retribution and all of that. And I'm not entirely sure that, based off of what they showed us in season 4, that I thought they would do that in season 5, but I appreciate that they did. I thought Charles and Diana was handled pretty well this season overall.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it was a little bit, I think a lot of the story of the divorce was told in a narrative way that we needed to think that Diana was being unreasonable.
Yeah, it was weird.
And it's possible she was. It's possible, we can do all of the, like, she should have known this was how he was going to react, all that kind of stuff. But I thought beyond this being about the crown, and it got very pro Charles and Camilla in the back half of this season, which, is again a 2022 into 1997. I thought it was pretty balanced. I did appreciate, as I said at the top in my themes, that they talked about how this is all affecting William.
Yeah.
And that Diana did what a lot of, statistically, not every single mother, this is a statistical overgeneralization, alert. What a lot of single mothers do if their oldest child is a boy, which is do some emotional missing. And not just single mothers, but mothers with emotionally unavailable husbands have a tendency to then treat their oldest boy as their emotional husband. Yeah. It is common. It is a thing that happens. And it is cringy when you are on the outside of it. When you are the person doing it, I'm sure it doesn't even occur to you that you're doing it. Yeah. But it is really painful to watch. And it is very painful to love someone who carries that damage.
Yeah.
Because it is particular trauma when your mother relies on you and overshares and treats you like a peer when you are in your late childhood and teens. Especially, like, William should have never known about Diana's dating life. He didn't need to know that, especially when he's still trying to maintain a relationship with his father. Like, it's all very messy.
Yeah.
And I think what it really did was show us Diana's immaturity, and that she developmentally arrested when she was a young teenager, mid to young teenager. All that to say, I thought it was handled really well in that it was absolutely catastrophically bad.
Yeah.
And every record of it says that that's what it was.
Yeah, and nobody comes out of it unscathed, right? And as it was happening, I wasn't sure I understood what William's role was, as he kept appearing in episodes. And then by the time we get to, by the time we get to Gunpowder, where he's off to Eton now and visiting with his granny, I just was heartbroken for the position he was put in with his tiny little baby brain.
Yep.
That is so removed from what ordinary society looks like. He's already a kid apart because he's been raised within that system. And to be put in the middle of his mother, whom he loves and whom loves him, and who's a very compassionate, caring, lovely person. His father, whom is both his father and the heir to the throne. And his grandmother, who is his granny, and by all accounts is an excellent grandmother to her grandkids. But also the monarch. And he's going through the same things his dad went, like being educated to be king and trained to be king while all of this is happening. And my parents' divorce wasn't anywhere like in the same universe as traumatic as Charles and Diana's, but it was traumatic to me when I was 6 and 7. I can't imagine going through something that traumatic in that family with those expectations and then having it plastered over the press. Like, I came out of the other side of this season, but especially episode 8, being like, it's a goddamn miracle that boy is alive. And if he has an ounce of, like, sanity on his shoulders, fair dues.
Yep.
Like, if he is a modicum of adjusted, because that is brutal stuff. And, like, I'm hoping they continue that into season 6. I think they will.
Yeah, because, I mean, we know we get up to when he meets Kate, which he does at St. Andrews in, like, 2001, 2002. So, that is, and they've cast 2 boys as his role.
Yeah.
So he grows.
Yeah.
And there's no mention of casting of Harry. It would not surprise me if we don't get much or any Harry in season 6, because he is not consequential to the crown.
Yeah, we only got snippets of him in this season at all.
Yeah. So, and his, like, public scandals, et cetera, don't really happen until the mid to late aughts. Mm-hmm. Because he's still at Eton when, you know, so, like, it's not till his military service and everything else that he becomes more of an international headline.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if we don't get, you know, little if no Harry in 6. It would save them some money. Because Dominic West cannot be cheap, neither can Imelda Staunton or Jonathan Pryce. So it would save them some cash.
Yeah.
But I think that's this season.
Yeah, I think so.
Well done and dusted.
Mm-hmm.
What we hope for season 6 is that there is 0 mention of the Good Friday Agreement. Not a single breath of it.
Don't you touch Northern Ireland with a 10-foot pole, Peter.
Because you only mentioned it twice this season, and both times were ham-fisted and offensive. So,
In passing. So
don't you dare touch it.
No, just keep your hands away from it, please.
Keep your hands away from it. I would also, my hope is that we do get to see Diana happy in, like, a mature and not, like, puppy love. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
A mature relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were only together for, like, what, a year before they died. So, you know, we don't get, like, a lot.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I hope they handle her death. I don't even know. If next season does not contain someone singing or referencing Candle in the Wind, I'll be a little upset. Just kind of joking, but also, like, that was a huge part of the world.
Dude, a couple of months.
That's it? Okay, then we're not going to see her. She's still in puppy love and just fucking around.
According to Harper's Bazaar.
Oh, I mean, they're probably right.
The couple had been seeing each other for just a few months before the car accident.
Okay.
Wow. I assumed it was at least a year.
Okay. So yeah. So I take back the settled, because they're not. That's way too early. But I will keep I want to see her happy.
Uh-huh.
I want a reference to Candle in the Wind. And I would like to get to know William a little bit better.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just catching up really quick before I pick up with what I think. The Saint-Tropez trip was July 1997, and they were dead by the end of August.
I thought they died in 98. Okay, they died in 97.
97.
Okay. I know they died on the same day that Mother Teresa did.
So, like, barely 2 months. Okay,
so they were still possibly just fuck buddies at that point.
Wow. Okay. That was quick. I didn't realize that. That was happening live, everybody. Yeah, my hopes for season 6 are an empathetic covering of Diana's death.
I don't know what that looks like, but that's what I want to. Yeah.
Where no one besides the press are the bad guys. Like, I don't want to see, like, I don't know, you know, I don't want to see anybody else be made out to be the baddie in this. Although I know,
Well,
I know people were really unhappy with how the Queen handled it. So maybe they'll be realistic.
But he already told that story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that's, if you've never seen his 2007 Oscar Helen Mirren movie, The Crown, that's the story. Not, that wasn't directed to you. That was directed to...
No, I know.
That story is about how the Queen botched the response to Diana's death. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that movie opens with Diana's death.
I think so. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it. We'll have to watch it before.
We should. Yeah, we'll watch it before the next season. And
before
maybe
the
that'll
next
be some
season.
Patreon bonus content, is us talking about The Crown.
Or
The Queen. It
Yeah,
was
The Queen.
a great movie.
It's a great
I would
movie.
be really shocked if he wants to, like, retread that ground.
Yeah, that would be, because that
would be odd.
You would have to take up a lot of time, and time is a finite resource on television.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that done empathetically. There's rumors that that the show is going to carry on through 2002, which is when both it's a Jubilee year for the Queen and when Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother die. So I would like to see that because I think that would be an appropriate end to the show. And it'd be interesting to see how they handle the death of those two women and how Elizabeth handles them, as played by Imelda Staunton. And yeah, I think a better development of William, I would agree, and more time kind of not focusing on, but just giving space to what a like, y'all, I was not on Team William. I'm not on teams at all, but like I didn't really think that much about it until this season. And then afterwards I was like, whoa, it's real tough to be that kid. Like real tough. So I think that's where I'd like to see it go. I don't think we need to get into Harry at all. It's not about Harry at this time in the monarchy. And as I said in our episode 10 recap, I'll be real interested to see how he deals with the Blair premiership. Outside of Northern Ireland, please don't cover Northern Ireland. But it could be really interesting, especially through his 2022 lens that he is wont to do.
I don't need to spend more time with Charles and Camilla, even though I know we're going to.
Oh, 100%.
I'm already like, I don't need it, but we're going to get it, which is fine. I'm intrigued to see how they handle Charles being a single dad.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't get remarried for a minute.
Yeah.
Even though he's been acting like he's been married to Camilla forever, I'd love to see any interactions between Camilla and William. We know from Prince Harry's eminent piece of literature that he does not care for Camilla. But I don't know anything about William and Camilla, so I'm interested about that. Always more corgi content.
Yeah, disturbing lack of corgis. There was like one corgi scene in this episode.
Yeah, and she's really moved on from brooches, so we can't have brooch watch.
We can't pick up on brooch watch, yeah.
The fashion has moved on, so she's seriously dressing like a sofa these days, which is what every old woman did in the 90s. They just all looked like walking sofas, my grandmothers included. My grandmothers, God love them, looked like sofas until the day they died. Because my grandmothers were also the people that did not leave the house unless they looked exactly like Elizabeth dressed every day. Like, there was no leaving the house in sweatpants for my grandmothers until they got much, much older. And then it was, like, they were all around, they were both, like, 10 to 15 years older than her. Mm-hmm. And so, but they followed that same generation, my sweet grandmothers. Elizabeth and I would have paid most of my life savings to have Elizabeth and my mother's mother in conversation. Lizzie and Letty would have been pretty hilarious.
Pretty good stuff.
Anyway, yeah, more corgis. We're going to get how the monarchy handled Y2K. That just occurred to me. That's going to be hilarious. I love any conversation that tries to explain to the youths of today how fucking panicked we were over Y2K.
Oh my God. Y'all, you don't even know. You don't even know what a panic it was.
I will take any retrospective about what like an absolute global fever pitch we were in for no reason.
Maybe that'll be the bottle episode, because he loves a bottle episode. Maybe we will just do a Y2K bottle episode.
That'd be amazing. We're gonna get 9/11. He's gonna have to do 9/11.
Oh, flip's sake. Yeah.
Because Blair and the Queen both like sent like they have to do 9/11 because
who is he gonna cast even though as W?
Who are they gonna cast as W?
Oh, you guys. There's a lot.
Please let it be Will Ferrell. Please let it be Will Ferrell.
I was about to say, who played him in the biopic that they did? Was it
Josh
Brolin?
Brolin. I was going to say Groban. I was like, no, but the other one that sounds like that. Yeah, Thanos. They cast Thanos.
Yeah.
No, I want Will Ferrell. I'm gonna gun for that.
Oh, come on, Peter Morgan. Pull that trigger. What's Will Ferrell doing right now? Nothing. He'll do it.
I hope he makes another movie exactly like Spirited. I will say I'm a stan for that movie.
Yeah.
If you have not seen it on Apple TV Plus and you have access to an Apple TV Plus account, Spirited is a top to bottom delight. So please, he was making that for a long time. So good afternoon to anyone who has seen that movie.
Yeah, maybe he's in a break and you can rope him in to do some W acting for you. But
you know what? I would think the bottle episode is actually going to be her mother and sister's deaths.
Probably.
Because we already know from the filming that has happened that younger actresses have been brought back to do flashbacks. Scenes.
Yeah.
So I bet you the bottle is going to be them, the story of the three of them together and like their funeral. It wouldn't surprise me if the bottle is their funeral.
Yeah, that's true. We do know that they've brought Lizzie and Margaret flashbacks to the Second World War. So. Yeah. The lots to look forward to for season 6. Some interest. We will be keeping our weather ear to the ground for casting announcements. Obviously, we're getting the same big 4: Imelda Staunton, Jonathan Pryce, Dominic West, and Elizabeth Debicki. I would assume. Flip me. What's her name? Who's playing Princess Margaret is the same.
It seems like everybody from this season is going to next season. It just depends on what their episode order is.
And except the kids, I think, will have aged.
The kids are different, yeah.
So that'll be very interesting to see. We will be having an announcement coming shortly that this will be our last YouTube video for quite a while. We're taking a break, in the words of Eliza Hamilton. We are going further than upstate. We are going to Canada to write our book. But for the rest of this, for a big chunk of this year, 2023, we'll be focusing on that. And so we will be pausing the YouTube and the Patreon. Obviously, we will be back for Crown season 6 when it happens, end of this year, beginning of next year. When you will see us in the interim, we do not yet know. But we love you very much. We love this community very much. We thank you so much for building it and growing it with us. If you're watching The Crown 6 months from the time this recap was posted, I will still be replying to comments. We won't disappear. So if you're watching it and you want to have a conversation with us, we'd love to keep having conversations. We won't be producing new video content for y'all for a bit. So that we can focus all our brains on writing the book. So until we see you again, would you leave us, please, with a benediction, Kristen?
I would be only delighted. As I always say when we talk about The Crown, our hope for you deeply is that you are known, that you get to be in covenantal relationship with the people that you love and you choose, that you are in a job that makes you feel called and hopeful and challenged. And that if you are ever in a situation in which somebody is making you be something that you do not want to be, that you get to exercise the power of free will and change that situation. That is our hope for you. In between now and when we see you again, may you be well, whatever that means for you. May you be safe, and above all, very legitimately, may you choose joy. because life is hard and joy is not a finite resource, and it's one that we should definitely share. So we'll see you before 2024. We promise that. We just don't know when. So keep well until then, friends. Bye.
Bye.